All right, thank you, Sean. So welcome everyone to the Passive House Accelerator's 12th Global Passive House Happy Hour of our second year and episode number 64. Thanks for joining us. I'm Prudence Ferreira, senior member of the Carbon Neutral Design Group at BR+A Consulting Engineers and leader of their Passive House team. And every Wednesday night, your host right here. We at the Accelerator are an inclusive gathering. Everyone is welcome, no matter who you are. You are in the right place, except for unless you're not in New York tonight, which is a bummer that we can't all be there. And I had my dog sitter cancel on me. Otherwise, I would be there with Zach and Michael too. So sad. Anyways, to kick off the show, I would love to invite you all to unmute yourselves and join me in raising your glass in celebration of Passive House Accelerator's second birthday. Hear, hear.
Happy
birthday.
Happy birthday. Here, here.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
With a cup of tea.
Zach and Michael are joining us along with Kevin from Baxtingly's office. I'm going to keep my remarks short and hand it over to them. How are things in New York tonight? Zach, what's going on? Can you believe it's been 2 years already?
I can't believe it's been 2 years. It's super fun to be here. And I'm going to pass it off to Michael, the founder of Passive House Accelerator, to say a couple words. We're clearly not ready to interact with one another in physical proximity. So this is just one of those awkward emerging from COVID moments. But I'm going to hand it off to Michael now, and he'll say a couple words. Here, Michael, you're gonna have to do that. You share. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's pretty close.
Hey guys. So yeah, it has been a fun couple of years, especially today when everybody's here in person finally, which is fun. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in person. But I would like to say thank you, to Zach for making the Accelerator even better than it ever was before. But also, these happy hours have been incredible. I mean, Sean and Monty, and then everyone else who came in afterwards to kind of help with it. This has been just Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights have just been just so much fun. So thanks. Cheers.
Awesome. Fantastic. So you can keep that in. We're going to go into breakout rooms now for a few minutes. And we might go a little bit longer than we've gone recently because people are eager to talk to each other. So we'll see you in, I don't know, 7 minutes.
Thank you, Zach, very much. And thank you for allowing me to do this introduction. It's really my pleasure to be here on the eve of the NAPHN Conference to introduce Caitlin Martusewicz and Tony Daniels of Cycle Architecture, located in Brooklyn. Seems to be a heavy Brooklyn presence this evening. And I should say it's nice to see so many faces that I know we'll see in person at the conference tomorrow as well as online, and encourage everyone to join us. I wanted to briefly mention that Cycle Architects featured this evening has 2 tie-ins to the conference, and both tying into NYSERDA funding, not coincidentally, which is appropriate because NYSERDA is also a big funder of the conference itself. So first, Tony is going to be presenting on their work to investigate design challenges and scaling retrofits. Some really interesting work with the New York City Public Housing Authority, and that's happening at a session tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And second, the project they're presenting here this evening is a winner of NYSERDA's Buildings of Excellence program. And Friday at 1 p.m., we have a session featuring 3 big multifamily affordable projects that were also recent winners of that Buildings of Excellence competition, which is really going a long way to showing how we can transform the market. So I think that work, these sessions exemplify the theme of the conference, Passive House for All. And, you know, we really mean it. We need to not just spread the benefits of Passive House, but increase access, share the opportunities, bring in new voices, and work towards a more just sustainability. So that's my pitch for the conference as this tie-in goes. And so without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce first Caitlin Martusewicz, who is a Cooper Union graduate and a certified Passive House designer, a very strong combination of attributes. Caitlin's passion for sustainable development led her to work in rural Ghana, including work on orphanage, solar-powered water sanitation facilities, and volunteer housing with an Austrian NGO. I wonder if there's a Passive House tie-in there. She also worked for UNICEF with the Ministry of Education of Laos to develop national standards for the construction of schools. She joined Cycle Architecture in 2014, and as they say, the rest is history. So Tony Daniels is the founding principal of Cycle. His work is really focused on civic architecture, has been, and really in practical understanding and combined with high design quality and an intense focus on environmental sustainability. He's a graduate of Columbia and is also a certified Passive House designer. But perhaps most importantly, Tony is a prolific songwriter, and word has it that he'll be delivering his portion of the presentation this evening in verse a cappella. Just kidding, Tony. So without further ado, Tony and Caitlin, take it away.
Great. Ken, what a great introduction.
Yeah, really, Ken. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'll spare everyone the plug that I was going to make for our presentations at tomorrow's conference. But you know, hope to see you all there. And thanks once again, you know, Zach, Ken, Michael, everyone for inviting us, Sydney, Sean, for inviting us to present to you here. So I just want to say a few words before we hand this over to Caitlin, who will give you the real lowdown. This project, 669 St. Mark's, is a very special project for our firm. After a long career, including some work on some landmark green building projects, I started up Cycle in 2007 with a commitment to what was then called sustainable design. And a desire to participate in the remaking of New York City as a green paradise. But for many years, through the recession and beyond, we really had to struggle to make it by with whatever work we could find. And we found that many of our clients were not receptive to arguments in favor of designing for energy efficiency, much less, you know, high energy performance. They said it was just too complicated and cost too much. So our solution was just to find better clients, of course. I first met Massimo Coco working on a project that was really pure service. I was helping him solve a vexing problem in a loft law building with the Department of Buildings and New York City bureaucracy. But, you know, we started a friendly relationship, and he asked me for my take on a property in Crown Heights. And in addition to giving him the zoning and development prospects as I saw them, I said, why don't we try and build a passive house there? And his response was, well, you know how to do that in New York? And I'll tell you, Caitlin and I have been waiting for that for a long time. And this is a great opportunity for us. And I'll let Caitlin explain the rest of it to you all. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I had a whole seamless segue plan that would have me jump right into the rest of this, but I actually want to start off by thanking the Passive House Accelerator team for having us today at a time that seems to be full of reawakening, and to thank them for what they do. I almost wore my Passive House Accelerator shirt today, but I realized too late that it's in the laundry. So, because I wore it recently, obviously, and just quickly, I felt so lucky to have won a shirt in a random wheel giveaway, and this was over a year ago. I think it was maybe the third happy hour of the second year, which took place despite us all being in the very depths of the pandemic. And it happened to be the first one I attended. And I'd been holed up at the time in a remote family home with shoddy internet. So it was a little jittery. And yet after joining just one meeting, I won a shirt and I thought, how fun. But beyond the shirt, that evening, I found this community, which is, I've learned over the last 15 months or so, consistent in its dedication to bringing important building science and memorable projects to this global audience, and also to keeping us focused on our goals to make the built environment better, even when so much else seemed uncertain. And it's always fast, factual, and actually fun. So I'm very grateful for the organizers and for all of you who continue to show up here to learn and to do the work. When Cycle was asked to speak to this group of amazing students of the game, as I call them, there was no way we could say no. Though we at Cycle are dedicated to the principles I think we all represent, this case study is in fact Cycle's first project going for certification as a passive house. So we appreciate your tolerance as we present things you may have seen before. And we also very much look forward to a lively conversation at the end. So talk to you all soon. Without further ado, here's a bit of our journey with our first passive house. Our client in this endeavor is another stalwart, Massimo, who's an Italian real estate developer with a record of completing award-winning energy efficient buildings in Italy, held from the outset that a well-designed and highly energy efficient building is already business as usual. He staked his claim on the fact that this project, with those non-negotiable facets of the Casa Passiva, must also work as a real estate venture in New York. His confidence and drive helped us to rally our New York-based team around passive house principles for the project, which is now in construction, as you saw in the previous slide. The project was awarded, as Ken mentioned, the Buildings of Excellence Award, which is administered by the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, or henceforth called NYSERDA, during late design as a low to zero carbon design building. Buildings of Excellence was at the time, I think, the only competition of its kind in the nation, and continues to lead the way in spotlighting carbon neutral building performance in New York State. The award recognizes that winners represent significant advancement in construction practices and points the way toward a zero carbon future for buildings that can be replicated at scale. I don't work for NYSERDA, but here's some information about the competition. And I'm told an announcement for round 3 is forthcoming sometime later this year. And also worth noting, this is MassMark's first development venture in the United States and has been pre-certified so far as a passive, pre-certified by the Passive House Institute. Okay, onward. For anyone who may not be aware, Brooklyn is a crucible of creative energy within New York City. In Brooklyn, our client found a marketplace that appreciates value of these first principles and engaged a team to help improve it. Our client hired Compass, a leading local real estate and marketing team, and our teams work together from schematic design to fully leverage their understanding of the market and to educate their marketing team actually about the first principles in order to illuminate how energy efficiency in buildings could serve as the foremost of 4 branding pillars in the overall marketing strategy. And those who aren't aware, Passive House Accelerator has made a bunch of awesome graphics that are available for free download on their website, should you want them, or they be helpful to you in telling someone about your work. The current draft of the marketing strategy establishes passive house standards and sustainability as priorities, which enhance the residents' quality of life and net return on investment while reducing operating costs. It highlights that the drastically reduced energy and operating costs of the building accrue to the benefit of all owner occupants and will increase the value of each unit. It highlights the location of central Brooklyn that is well served by all manner of transit, numerous amenities, ample recreational and cultural opportunities for its residents. And it displays an aesthetic, it displays an aesthetic of modern detail-oriented architecture that is respectful to its historic neighborhood. And it also shows off the optimized layouts, appliances, and ample natural light that the building offers. This project actually increases the density of the site. So we think that that means that it provides an opportunity for a lower carbon footprint per occupant, because you can walk, you can take the train, you can get to the park, you can rent a bike, you can do all the things from this place. By combining a low carbon footprint for the building occupants together with the building's highly energy efficient performance, we think this project points to an improved paradigm for urban infill housing. The entire design and marketing team were connected through previous experience working together, which is always helpful, and an integrated project delivery strategy, along with the developer, architect, and MEP engineer's familiarity with passive house principles, enabled us to identify and apply successful strategies for energy efficient design early in the project. EP Engineering, who designed the MEP fire safety systems and a bunch of other stuff, was a key asset to our team and deserves more than a nod here. They worked tirelessly to find answers to our endless questions and considerations for systems that weren't quite on American shores when we were designing this project. Additionally, the project is notable for involving Mark Harari's team at PHB Catalyst as a construction manager at the very beginning of the project to refine proposed building systems and means and methods of construction. And this was due to concerns about meeting budget constraints at the start of design. It is worth noting that from the outset, this building was planned to meet passive house standards. No comparison was ever taken with less energy efficient buildings or less efficient building strategies. However, Catalyst's feedback throughout the design process allowed us to adjust and clarify the project scope to meet the project budget without impacting those non-negotiables. This exercise was important and demonstrated that the biggest impacts to project costs and the greatest savings actually in time and money were found in systems other than the energy enclosure systems. Where we found those savings was in the building structural system, the foundation, strategy, site connections that we could get rid of, and the plumbing systems. In terms of replicability, the most unusual characteristic of this building actually is its site. Where most buildings in New York City are on 100-foot deep lots or even shallower, which equates to about 30 meters for those who are using a more advanced measuring system than me. This lot is 125 feet deep, or 38 meters, give or take, by 40 feet, which is about 12 meters. The building takes full advantage of the larger site. Did I miss a slide? Here it is. For an 8-foot side yard. This side yard allows for windows all along the east side of the building, which is not particularly common opportunity in New York City. Still, there are design features that can easily be replicated throughout this city or any other, including the features that we were holding as non-negotiables. They say if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. So what does the business as usual equate to in this project? What are the non-negotiable aspects of the design? This list will look familiar and includes a compact building form and simplified geometry, a well-insulated building enclosure with minimized thermal bridging, an airtight envelope, high efficiency heating and cooling, all electric heat pump water heaters, and you can see some of the products here, high efficiency energy recovery ventilation, PHI certified triple glazed windows. These were provided by Clearwall. An on-site PV renewable energy to help further reduce grid dependence. We've also removed all piped connections required to deliver fossil fuel in favor of efficient all-electric systems that you've seen. Passive shading design, which is incorporated into rain screen and brick detailing. And the project specs include detailed requirements to ensure quality control, including mandatory air sealing, thermal bridge training for a contractor and its employees. And just a quick plug or request for qualifications. The owner and contractor are currently seeking to engage a representative who, in addition to our design team, will observe construction to help us ensure that the design objectives are met. So we are accepting proposals. In addition to designing for energy efficiency, the project is designed for occupant health and safety, as well as comfort. Each unit has windows on at least 2 sides, and some have windows on 3 sides. All 4 sides of the buildings have window, which is a rare occurrence in dense urban areas, and it provides beautiful light. I thought I had a slide for this. Yeah, here we go. I'm gonna jump around a little bit. And a kind of remarkable, beautiful view of the backyard condition in this particular project. The building's windows will provide for thermal comfort even on New York City's coldest winter days and acoustic separation from the street. Every unit will have its own private outdoor space. This is this graphic here. And a public outdoor roof is also provided for residents to share. The building as designed is foam free, using mineral wool and dense plaque cellulose, which we thought was important, instead of polyiso and other plastics. There are additional requirements for the recycled content of finishes and the use of FSC certified wood. Cycle also applied New York City's zero waste design guidelines, and every unit has been designed with separate receptacles for waste, recycling, compostables, and all of these correspond to the building's dedicated chutes for each type of waste that are collected at the cellar level. The new building footprint actually resulted in a reduction in impervious site areas. So we designed an on-site water management system in the backyard, which will reduce stress on the city sewer system. Cycle also worked with local salvage shops and community collectors to reclaim existing building materials from the existing building and try to divert as much of it as possible from landfills. This work included removal of doors, hardware, decorative exterior metal grating, copings, sills, fireplace decorations, plaster detailing, some areas of historic flooring, and the entire interior stair and railing was preserved. Contextual consideration has been made for the brick proportions used on the facade. Detailing such as cornices and window surrounds gesture towards architectural context of the block, which was mostly constructed over a century ago. However, the design approach is blended, and the building will stand out as contemporary through the utilization of integrated facade plantings and large glazed window openings. This is a recent rendering, so pardon its departure from our design. And finally, the PV system. Oh, this is right. Okay, this is where we see the plantings. This is the this neighboring building has this crazy vine, and we thought to highlight that view with all of ours and kind of make a green enclosure backyard that we're pretty excited about. And finally, the PV system financing and rebate structuring is still being reviewed. However, an early strategy establishes that a developer or third party will be introduced to install and operate the solar submetering system. This solar owner will sell the solar energy to the condo owners, offsetting all energy needed by the residents with 100% or nearly 100% solar energy, which will be enshrined in the condo lease agreement. As New York State's grid becomes cleaner in order to achieve its goals for 100% renewable grid, we can estimate that all electric building will become carbon neutral from an energy standpoint anyway by 2040. Residents will be able to claim a state tax credit for the energy they purchase from the developer, and the solar owning entity can anticipate a 5 or so year return on investment and nearly $170,000 in revenue from the sale of energy over 25 years to the building. The benefits of a renewable power source are in a way shared by all. The community solar concept, as we're calling it, for this installation is also replicable to the extent that there's a market for renewable electricity in New York State. And my last slide, I think, here is basically NYSERDA's Buildings of Excellence Award criteria and how important, I just wanted to highlight how important passive house design standards were in making a case for this project. That concludes my bit, but we are so happy to be able to share this with you all, and we're excited now for the liveliest Q&A if we could.
All right, excellent.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much, both of you. And we'll start with a few general questions, and then as we get to the end of the hour, we'll roll over into the after hour. And thank you both for agreeing to stick with us, because I'm sure we'll have more questions in the after hour.
Awesome, yeah.
Let's get into it. First up is Robert Tanner.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, but I think you answered the question in your presentation on the solar arrays. What percentage of the solar feeds all the systems of the building and also the residents? And I think in your presentation, you said about 100%, which is amazing.
I'm going to let Caitlin answer that, because I'm not sure it's 100%. I'm not sure why we said that.
I think when we were originally doing the Buildings of Excellence Award and our consideration, it's 100% of the house loads. So I'm sorry that wasn't clear. Yeah.
That's more like it.
Yeah.
So it's about a 15 kilowatt array, right? That's the total rated size. So
I think the idea is that the developer would have other community solar projects, and that whoever the developer was would be sharing and providing the renewable grid.
Great. And just again, how many units are in this apartment building?
10.
10 units. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Robert. And we're going to head over to Mike.
Oh, I just had a question if it was a double, if you had a scissor stair, as someone pointed out to me in direct message, or a single stair, but it looks like it's a scissor stair as required by New York City Building Code.
Yeah, it's a scissor stair. It's required by New York City Building Code. It is, it can be avoided on some buildings, but the footprint of this building is just a little bit too large. It's kind of, if this building were under 2,500 square feet per floor, then it could be you could have a single stair, but it's larger than that. So we had to. I mean, I don't know. It's just it's one of those things. Where you're just barely over the threshold.
Yep. Thanks.
Sorry, Mike. Thanks, Mike. I take it you're in a sunny spot in Seattle today?
Yes, naturally.
Very nice, my friend. Thanks for joining us. Zach, luckily it's nice weather in Brooklyn, otherwise Zach would be jealous. Now we're going to head over to Philly with Shannon.
Hi, thanks, Sean. And thanks, Tony and Caitlin. That was a really nice presentation. And congratulations on your first passive house. I loved the story that brought you there. And last congrats on going foam free. That is such a hard thing to do. I'm wondering, what kind of insulation did you use below grade?
We specified it was a Rockwell manufactured product. I think it was that was suitable for for taking the loads. We could if you drop us a line, we can send you what we expect.
Great, thank you very much.
And again, just to confirm, like in production right now, you guys got the foundation finished and now working your way up. Is that where we're at? All right. So again, if you are at the conference, I'm sure we'll have the address for this location. So you go for a bike ride or a walk and, do a selfie, and hopefully you can wear your Passive House Accelerator t-shirt too. I know Sydney's looking for those to help out our Instagram game. So there's that for that. Zach had a question.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were just actually in conversation with NYSERDA yesterday about some of their communications priorities around Passive House, right? Like what are the misperceptions out there about Passive House, and how can we collectively as a community help address those? And one of those is the notion that high performance and good design are antithetical. That there's a perception out there, particularly with market rate work, that's the case. And I think that your project is a good example, a good proof that that's not the case. But I would love to hear your kind of reflections about that relationship between high performance and great design.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I'll personalize this a little bit. But I was not one of those architects who was born with a pencil in his hand and drew pictures of Gothic cathedrals when he was a kid and all that. I was a musician. I played guitar and the cello and stuff. And I could not draw a straight line, but I was kind of called to architecture during college. And the reason was that I wanted to do something useful, and I wanted to have my life matter in the world. What I found was that what people like in architecture are things that are really well designed, and to me that meant that you took into account all the externalities. I mean, if you look at the presentation that Caitlin just gave of our project, I mean, you'll see, her thinking is aligned. We like to look at the context, all of those things that Caitlin mentioned, they all really matter, to us. And that's something that we would take to any project. One of those things is context, and you just have to understand the context. You have to understand, you don't just put a cornice on the building. You don't go to a catalog and ask the manufacturer what kind of cornice there is. I mean, you don't design a brick surround just by, I'll put a soldier course there. I mean, you have to look, you have to be engaged, you have to be present in your design. That's the essence of good design. That's one of the reasons why I love Passive House, because it really forces you to think through the details. That's our process from the beginning to the end. It is all included. We do not stop at energy efficiency. We do not stop at aesthetics. We do not stop at urbanism. We do not stop at equity. I mean, we really, on every project, it needs to be a complete design.
Great, thank you.
And Tony, maybe we can dive back in the process too. As you had original design, and then now you have this more contemporary design, and I know this is really not a Passive House discussion, but I think we're all kind of interested of like that overall change, and if you could just explain maybe that a bit detail of
there's just a really simple explanation for that. There's no mystery. Our client is Italian, and he showed one of his colleagues in Italy who's an architect the design, and the Italian architect had some suggestions. And, we took them. I mean, we loved it. It was still our project. It still met all the thresholds. I mean, we took some advice from a colleague, and incorporated it into the design. And, you know, we think it works.
I just want to add, you know, Massimo has a really good eye for design as a developer, and the houses that he's done in Italy, you know, he's shown us an entire book of the designs that he did. They published it for the Italian Passive House, and he's really a good client, and having someone who's aware of these things, all of the elements that Tony highlighted, like, it's not just about looking nice, but there is a sense of belonging once you've sensed all of the things that have gone into these buildings. And I can't speak specifically about this one because it's not built yet, but that's what we aim for. That when you arrive, you recognize that so much care has been taken to consider all of those aspects. And so we're really happy to be working with Massimo on this, because he seems to be a master, and he surrounds himself with people who have a passion with any facet of that process, and we all just end up together, which is great.
Excellent. I was hoping that it was like a bar fight and you guys were all had to disagree about design, and, you know, but just common passive approach to passive design. I get it. Okay.
Oh goodness. Well, if it weren't COVID, maybe, but if we could fly to Italy without problems, then we'd have a different conversation.
Gotcha. All right. Ken had a question for you.
Yeah, I was curious, just described having a pretty complete project team on board. I don't know if it was right from the beginning, but the conception of the developer and having, you know, real estate folks and having, I think, construction management or costing, and having the whole set of inputs from early on, it sounds like, in the project, which isn't often the case. And I'm curious how that helped inform. Did it make it easier to reach the various objectives and passive house goals, or you know, did you discover new things along the way that you know, that setup offered that, you know, doesn't always happen?
Right. Well, I think we'll give mixed reviews to, you know, to having you know, the real estate experts on board with regard to passive house, because they all want huge windows, even if the bedroom is tiny. You know, you've got to have a, you know, a 6 by 10 foot window, but the bedroom's 9 feet by 10. You know, so like that's, you know. So we'll give some mixed reviews to, on the real estate side. The CM, we had to bring on, well, we kind of insisted on it because you know, I'm in New York, we don't do it this way, but maybe in Italy they designed a budget. I don't know. But in this case, you know, we were really going to be held to the budget, and I said, well, I'm not going to take that risk. So you've got to, we basically forced Massimo to, you know, to hire a CM to, you know, to review plans and provide estimates along the way. And, you know, look, there's a saying, there's no such thing as bad news, just news you get too late. So I would highly recommend people undertake, you know, budgeting and cost exercise at the earliest possible moment in design. You know, and certainly by DD.
Did that drive the, not just building design decisions, but passive house decisions at all? Equipment, components, arrangements? Or were you pretty much in the groove?
I think we were pretty much in the groove.
It resulted in a really like intent look at our structural system. Like, do you really need all that steel? Do you really need two separate trades working at the same time? We got rid of all masonry on the inside, like any CMU early on. We're like, nope, one trade. Whatever we want to do, it's going to be steel or metal, whatever it is. And just like little hints like that really helped, I think, and it refined our floor plan from like schematic design, basically. yeah, and I think like even, I don't know, the elevator is still like a weird mystery in this project, but you know, like elevator consultants and subs don't want to like look at anything other than a CMU enclosure that they can hook all these things to. And I'm like, no, it's steel. Like, let's get it together. So yeah, no, I think having someone tell us, you know, oh, I can get it for, obviously now it's COVID and we're told every month things go up by 20%. So all of that kind of went out the window. Not really, but like it's totally different. It's a different landscape right now. But yeah, no, it's super informative. And even, you know, real estate people who have style guidance that are based on things that they like or whatever, it's helpful. But also, I think one of the highlights for this project for me with the marketing team was that we're talking about marketing. I felt like a marketer talking about this project right now, but like the fact that they wanted to learn and they see it as a upcoming or already here thing that they need to be knowledgeable about, and that we were relied on to give them the information was really important. Like I've never had that experience before with the, you know, like cutting edge world leading marketing team. So that was helpful, I think, in both directions.
Thanks, everyone. We're going to head over to Zach for some sponsors and announcements, and then we'll come back to wrap things up and then dive into the after hour.
All right, great. This is amazing, Tony and Caitlin. Thank you so much. And the events like tonight's are made possible thanks to support from our sponsors. None of this would happen without that help. So I want to thank our founding sponsors, 475 High Performance Building Supply, Baxt Ingui Architects, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, Glavel Foam Glass Gravel, Minutair All-in-One HVAC and Dehumidification, RDH Building Science, Rockwell North America, Stocorp, and Zola Windows. Our champion sponsor is SIGA, and our stakeholder partner is NYSERDA, the New York State Energy and Research Development Authority. Our patron sponsors are Aero Barrier, BR+A Consulting Engineers, Brennan Air Tightness and Installation, Inotech Windows and Doors, and US Engineered Wood T-Stud. Thank you, Kevin.
All right, well, since Sean isn't jumping in, I'll take this opportunity to thank you all for joining us. If you need to go spend time with your family, eat dinner, work on a deadline, or get your butt to New York for the conference, then have at it. For those of you that want to stay with us into the after hour, let's get it going. And I'll hand that back off to you, Sean.
Thank you very much. Just loading up the question queue. Looks like we're going to dive into costs, dive into the numbers. So Caitlin and Tony, get ready. But before we do that, well, you guys deserve a well-deserved cheer. So everyone, if you want to unmute and give these two praise. Thank you guys for joining us. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Nice
Thank
work.
you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Wonderful.
Cheers.
I see a few glasses are getting empty. So if you have to refill, I understand. So first we are off to talk with Perik Lally. Just double check. Sorry, I didn't queue him up.
Yeah.
There you are. Great.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. It was a question for Caitlin. I wasn't sure if I got all the information, but it's on the solar side. You said it's a community program. So the developer, do they install the whole system and then reap the rewards? And is that my understanding? Is that a common arrangement?
This was an early conversation that we were having with prospective solar developers, yes, but it hasn't been confirmed, as I said in the presentation. So we're still working through those details. But the idea would be that they could be the installer owner of the system and probably amalgamate, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like bring all those systems together and share as needed through their various projects.
Gotcha.
They will actually own several systems in Brooklyn, and they will have people. There'll be essentially an ESCO, an energy service company, Right. And so, this would be one of several arrays that they would own. The unique thing about this is that instead of just, selling power to to anybody who subscribes, they would sell to the residents of the building, to the actual building owners.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And I guess it's a little bit common now with, Tesla's solar panels in California, and maybe a few of you that are in California that's seen Solar City do these types of systems can speak to that in a bit. But we'll keep going with the questions because we're going to go back to California with Robert Tanner.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a sense of the premium. Do you have from the CM who was on board? What was the premium for the development using all of the comprehensive passive house techniques? And also with that, is the owner going to sell it, or is he going to use it as market rate apartments?
I'm not sure if you want me to take that or you want to take it.
If you don't say what I've got on my mind, I'll speak up. But I'm sure we will.
I'll try to take a stab. And this was the point. It was never non-negotiable, and so there was no premium. We just had to make it work. So it was a different attitude in approaching a cost. It wasn't, this is how we would build it, and now we want to add these things. It's these things here. What do you need to do to make it work? And I actually, that really pushed everyone. We were lucky to have a developer who has an energy about him that he just can convince generally anyone to do anything, I think. So he made it happen.
So it was a top-down budget, meaning price per square foot for the development, and you guys had to design it to make it.
Pretty much.
Yep. And we had we had the CM on early on, and then we bid the project at one phase of the design. Basically, it was pencils down, bid it, and that was to the general public. And we looked at how those bids compared, and it was at or under what we had expected, which was great. And then there was a redesign, and then we did it all over again. So it was a really intense exercise. But if you just tell people what you need and what you expect, and that you can't question some parts of it, then the rest falls into place. We've had a structural redesign as recent as like 2 weeks ago, but it wasn't because the cost of passive house strategies, it's because the cost of steel is very high. So we figured out how to bring the cost down again. Basically, it's a lot of VE, but it never has to do with the things that we need in a passive house.
Is he going to sell it or use it as market rate rental as a developer?
It's a sale. The 10 condo units will be sold. Of course. Thanks.
Sorry about that. I was trying to look up a video for one of the questions. And when do they go to the market? I mean, in Vancouver, they've already, it would have been pre-sold here. So what's the plan for going to market with the units?
Well, we are in the process of making a filing with the New York State Attorney General.
Okay.
Is what we need to do in order for them to sell. So they'll probably start up, and I guess whenever that plan is approved.
I think we're scheduling with the latest schedule at the end of this year. Things will start being marketed intensely, and people can start seeing things that are involved with a sale, but the sale won't be till next year.
Gotcha. I will also dig up in Vancouver, one of the passive house projects, single family built by Lucio, who from DLP. That passive house is now on the market. So if you're looking for a passive house in Vancouver, come on over. I'll put the marketing info for it, just because I'm sure some people like to see how we're marketing passive houses. and we'll ideally see what the price premium is for, I mean, either someone that doesn't get what they're getting and going to get it for a steal, or we'll see what the Vancouver market does, but I got to find a few things. Thank you, Robert. We're going to head over to Prescott in Phoenix. Let me just make sure Prescott is still here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead, fire away.
Yeah. So just to keep the conversation going, I had a question about price because I lived in New York City for many years and as a renter. But ballpark, is this a $700,000 flat that sells for $750 because it's slightly higher, or is it like double the price? I mean, just back of the envelope, like what are, for a, I don't know, 400 square foot studio, what sort of price? Like, I'm just curious about the end result, if we know it at all.
That's a really good question, and a really hard one to answer. In part because one of the characteristics of these units is that they're really big units. They're large apartments, so they're it's filling a niche where there's a lot of need. Especially in Brooklyn, where people are living with moving in with their families and so on. So 1,500 square foot apartment. I mean, there are just not too many of those. So I mean, that's a major part of the premium. Is just that you're getting the space. So I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Would the build method add to the price or keep it the same, or even, I mean, I know it'll save you money month after month, but
the original back of the envelope equation took current Brooklyn housing, and we factored like 200 comparable buildings, and comparable meaning that they had the same square footage or windows on two sides. Like, none of them are passive house, so the long-term factoring wasn't equivalent. But just looking at square footages and amenities, we just used the market average back in 2018. This was, so it was low. I mean, I don't want to say a number because I don't know what things are at now, and it'll sound weird or like,
yeah.
But we took an average of comparable units at the time and didn't apply any premium. And that was just what we said. Can you make it work? To the developer, we're like, can you make it work at this range? And we were like, use the low range because we don't know what's going to happen. Use the low range. And he's like, sure, let's go ahead. So.
Okay. Well, that's good then, because, it's kind of, I don't know, quick sidebar. M&Ms have actually been putting less sugar for like several years, and nobody notices. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not marketing it, they're just making it better. So is it, hopefully it's one of those situations where we just kind of start building better, and then it just becomes normal. Except you could say, hey, it's not going to cost you $200 just to run the AC in the summer. But actually, I had another question. I'm sorry to sneak this in about the solar system. Does it have a battery storage system? So because Con Ed is still some steampunk type of system that goes down every summer. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a huge benefit, especially if you lived through Sandy like I did. That even in the great New York City, whole blocks will be out of power. So if you had a battery in your condo and it's only shared with 10 units, that's a major selling feature.
Well, if you don't mind, Caitlin, I'm gonna take
please.
There right now. There is no battery, although we would like for there to be a battery. The main difficulty is getting the fire department in New York to approve batteries. And in 2019, there was an update to the fire code, which laid out all the requirements for batteries. And all the battery people that I was talking to at the time, they're like, "Oh, great! Certainty at last. We know what it will take to get this approved." No one's been able to get a battery approved in a residential district since then, because the requirements are so stringent, and because you know, it has to be outside. It has to be distant from lot lines, building walls. You know, it's really you know, it's difficult to you know, to physically find a site where a battery will fit given the regulations. Then there's testing. They all have to be UL 2540A tested. And, you know, surprisingly, because, you know, there's not a lot of certainty about the market or the possibility of putting batteries in, you know, in smaller residential developments like ours. You know, no one seems to have gone through with all of these tests, although I've heard that people are. Cycle is working actually on a residential battery project. It's for a 12-story building that happens to have a parking garage next to it. And we found a spot on the roof where we can put a battery. And we are using a flow battery system, a vanadium redox flow battery, which does not have, you know, anywhere near the fire explosion risk and doesn't require the same kind of testing and so on. I mean, the drawback is that it's really huge. I mean, it's like you know, it's a container size, right? For a, you know, not the form factor isn't right because you have you know, 2 large tanks of electrolyte, you know, along with the
So let's just keep steam then. And by the way, so thank you both for that response. When I lived in a studio in Manhattan, and this is like 2013, we had steam heat. So we were on the steam grid, which is, you know, the Victorian system here. But it was, I mean, it was hot. It was also loud and, you know, everything else, but it got hot in the winter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's going away. I mean, you know, everything is going to be electrified, you know, and that'll be that. I mean, unless they've decided to produce the steam with electricity.
Excellent. Thanks, Prescott. And we're going to head over to Ingrid.
Awesome. Thank you so much for, I missed way too much of that presentation. And Prescott, seriously, just tell me when you're on, because you are funny. I love your point and your communication style, dude. That's on point. Anyway, my question was about, and so I put it in the chat. The structural redesign was because the price of steel, right? And so I'm wondering, to what extent do architecture students and do designers learn to, instead of fanciful, you know, pieces of art that are built environments, to what extent are we taught to, do you think we are properly taught to design relative to realistic costs? And also, how has the cost of prices impacted what you're designing? The cost of prices in the last 12 months, how's it impacted design?
I'm not going to touch the institutional part of that because I have too many thoughts, and this is only 1 hour of after hour, so not touching that part. But in the case of this project, you know, the compact form, the simple geometries really served us because we could respond to that challenge relatively easily. Oh, you know, this type of beam is way crazy high right now. Okay, make a different kind with a different type of metal, and we're gonna make that happen. That's if you can deal with ambiguity as a designer and you have to, then you can do that. And luckily we ruled out cantilevers and all types of fancy structural stuff early on. And I'm not gonna go back into the institutional part of that, but Tony?
I'm just gonna say one thing about the Ingrid. It's a really great question, because we are always looking for architects, construction professionals who share our point of view. I've been practicing for about 30 years, and I'm finding that more and more students are better aligned now to really address the whole building, and that people coming out of school care about things like like practicality and equity. I see some progress there. The other thing I'd say is, it's been over 30 years since I was in school, but I haven't stopped learning, that's really everybody please do that.
Right. That's the point.
And if you don't know a lot and you're just getting started, don't worry. There's a long road ahead, and there's a long way to go. And I don't know, maybe you'll never get to the end of it, but you'll get somewhere.
And we're going to head over to Stephen Glickman. And Stephen, I won't ask you to do your Donald Duck voice, but I appreciate last night that you showed it to us and you were on point. You can ask the question in your regular voice tonight.
Thank you. Yes, I forgot that was recorded, so there's no going back. Never mind. My question relates to a bit of the realities of your profession, and my profession is, what do you do when a client comes to you and says, we want to change the exterior design of your building in terms of how it impacts your fee? What happens when the structural system changed? What happens when the CM says we have to cut costs by redesigning the interior? Do you have that all included? Obviously, your project budget doesn't change, but your time involved in whims, in some cases, of clients impacts your design fee, as well as the overhead of Passive House, obviously, as well. Do you just grin and bear it and say, I'm in for the whole deal? Or do you say, you want that, here's what it's going to cost you?
Oh, heck no. No, you want to change the design, you got to pay.
Checking. See how the big.
But seriously, the way we do design, as a lump sum, but at a certain point when the project goes into construction, we shift to an hourly or monthly rate.
Right.
That's how we do it. It's the simplest, for us to manage, and it's the most equitable.
Sure, but you said lump sum. So if, does that mean if somebody does say, so-and-so here in Italy says, change the style of the building, is that at no cost because it's a lump sum, or is that plus?
No, they're paying us to revise the details.
Oh, okay.
There's a pencil down moment, which is really important to acknowledge. And
Right.
once you're there, anything.
You're into the design.
Right.
Well, no, it's, and I think it was iterative the whole way. And there was a lot of back and forth that I feel maybe like, was taking advantage of a lump sum. But then afterwards,
You might say,
but then once you say, it's really important from a professional and contractual standpoint to establish what pencil down means. And at that point, here it's, I think once we've filed for the approval with the Department of Buildings, we have hereby entered construction, detailing and getting ready for, and that all needs to happen in a way that is equitable. And that, if someone has a different approach that isn't hourly, I'd love to hear it, but it's a different, it's a whole other ball game.
Okay, thank you. That's great. And wonderful project.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, looking forward to seeing this come further out of the ground. So So that's it for questions. I'm just going to double check because I know there was lots of chatter and I think I may have missed one. So if I've missed you, please chime in, or if you've just thought of one.
Someone asked, who's your drone guy? And that was my husband because he was watching, and it was my husband who is my drone guy. I'd like to acknowledge, so
thanks. I actually just wasn't sure what that was about, so I skipped it. I was like, I don't know about that one. I think someone's, talking to someone else and put it to the group. So.
I honestly just put it on there just because I haven't sent an invoice to Tony. So Tony, just look out for that email. I'm kidding, Tony. Don't get your serious face on. That was a joke.
Love it. Hey, if we're not having fun, why are we doing this, right? So no, good stuff.
Well, great.
So now, at this point, are you guys finding that the shift in your, demand on this project is getting to be hands off now that it's going into construction, or is there still some passive house details that need to be looked at, or are you just kind of dealing with the cost of goods issues and the transitions for, hey, we budgeted this project at this price. Now that price and availability is through the roof. So can we do a change order to this? What are you guys kind of managing right now?
Well, that was the steel change order that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
But no, no, the detailing doesn't stop. When we try and put together a thorough design package, but there are always contingencies in the field, and, corners and conditions that we didn't know about or didn't have the foresight to see. So we meet on the regular we go to the site. Caitlin and I both live a short walk from the site, so it's really easy. There's been an ethos of collaboration and collegiality on the project thus far, and we're trying to keep that going through construction.
Got it. And I may have missed this. I think Caitlin, you brought up, but the GC that's on it, is this their first passive house project?
It is, and if anyone missed the plug, we are accepting proposals for people like Emu or Stephen Winters. We have some proposals in, but if there were, underdogs or dark horses, is that the term? I don't even know. But if there were, we're still accepting proposals for on-site contractor training, some mock-ups on site to make sure everyone knows what we're doing, general air barrier monitoring, changes during construction that need to be caught in our PHPP model. Some of that we can catch, but we can't catch it all. So we'd like to bring someone on.
So if you missed it, you're really looking for an ass to join your team. That's an air specialty specialist. So air sealing specialist. Sorry, I screwed up the acronym, but anyhow, bad joke. I know Kevin Brendan was drinking beers with Mike, and so Kevin, if you're listening, you need to make a phone call. Just saying.
I think we've heard, or maybe spoken to Ruben. Yeah, call Ruben. Ruben's expecting your call.
Yeah,
if you're there.
So we'll go. Whoever's sitting at the table with Mike there, make sure that Mike talks to Kevin and Kevin talks to these guys. So make it so, everybody. And just a question too, because I love these Brooklyn retrofits, because again, we don't have this kind of level of detail or old enough buildings here in Vancouver. But do you guys, like, some of those items that you're trying to salvage to restore, are those been taken off site, or a lot of the stuff is new? Because you earlier talked about items in the deconstruction phase.
Yeah, no. The original building, unfortunately, we couldn't make a case for it standing, and we actually had proposed that we keep it. And then the first year that the new owner had it, a sprinkler burst that someone forgot to turn off the system and destroyed, basically, it was only 2 stories, the whole building. So that we had to adapt to, but there were things that were salvageable, and just through reaching out and understanding. And I think Michael, one of your former employees, is a friend of mine from Cooper, and he happens to be really tied into reclamation projects and restoring and selling and that whole market, which I'm completely oblivious to. But you know, he took it by the reins, and I found a salvage yard in Kingston who has a beautiful shop, Kingston, New York. So up by, who was I speaking to earlier? Dan, up near you, if you're still on. I don't think so. And they came in probably like 3 different days, and they took out all the doors, every piece of molding that they thought they could salvage. There was a giant, beautiful mirror and different types of benches and shelves that were built into the casework, that they took it all. And it was amazing because I knew it wasn't, going to be just like hit with a hammer and thrown in a bin. So that was really cool. And then it was like friends who have projects going on. We kind of opened it up for, if you want anything in this building, so I had friends in Brooklyn coming for bits of stone and sills and lintels as they were taking the project down. And we negotiated that with the demo team in advance. And so a lot of stuff that normally would just be in a cart, somewhere else wasn't. So that was cool.
Cool. And I mean, in the process, did that take away from the deconstruction time, or is this just in the phase of permitting? Nope. It's like, you know what, the building's got nothing to do for another month or so. Whoever wants parts, come in on the weekend and go for it. Here's the
the building stood kind of vacant for over a year because it was COVID and we're waiting for approvals, and there was a redesign. So I don't want to, I'm not, just say over a year, that's enough. And then so in that interim, we had visits and people tagged things that they wanted and things that had to do with the exterior that were dealing with site security. We left until the very end, and people all came right when we made a deal with the contractor. And when you bring people on to take this down, these are the elements, and they took it. So
very cool.
Yeah, it was cool. Everyone should do that, because the original building was really awesome, but it just couldn't keep living because it got destroyed. So
yeah. Well, at least the pieces that were salvageable were now carrying on, which is pretty cool. I know in Vancouver here too, we've got a company called Unbuilders, and they're now just leading the way in deconstructing our buildings. And I mean, the lumber, like 100-year-old lumber, is being pulled out and being reused. And it's just so cool to see, instead of it just being like demolished and sent to the landfill. So baby steps. We're all doing our part to move this stuff along.
What are they called, Sean?
The company's called Unbuilders. Unbuilders.
Okay. Yep. Got it. I didn't know there was another syllable in there.
Yeah, sorry. No, I've known Adam for a few years, so it's great to see his company get started. And awesome. They've now expanded, and I mean, but also too, it's about policy, right? And so they were able to grow in Vancouver because the Vancouver market, the city of Vancouver put in a heritage mandate, and so you couldn't just destroy it anymore. And so it gave him an opening to take on that service, and they've scaled quite well, and hopefully, kind of franchise it out and show different people how to do it. So maybe Unbuilders will be coming to a city near you. Ideally, we've had this conversation that we should have our high performance hub, prefab system right beside the deconstruction. So all the good materials would just come in, and then they would figure it out, and then all that lovely lumber would come next door, and we make prefab panels out of it. So that's our like 5 to 10 year dream. So
I have a barn just dreaming, waiting for a lab and a factory to be put into it. So let's connect.
Yep.
Plug harder, Caitlin. People should hear about your barn project.
My what is it called? The breakout rooms that we touched on it. It was really great.
Well, I think if there's no other questions, I think we can have a big breakout room, because I want to know about this. So let's go.
Oh, this my cue?
I think so. Sorry, I was just waiting for a second to see if anyone wanted to chime in, but I think everyone that is still here is interested in hearing this. So go for it.
Sure. So I'm in the process of closing on a barn in the Catskills, which is about 90 minutes from our George Washington Bridge. which is central to, it's the northern tip of Manhattan, but it's still Manhattan. So 90 minutes from Manhattan, we say. And it's 16,000 square feet, and it's an old Wells framed barn. It's beautiful. It's got some parts of the barn that were originally built with like a stone rubble foundation and old giant timbers. And then another part is, stone and regular, framing at the time. And then there's the third wing of the barn that's we imagine it was the milking equipment of the 40s being installed. So they had a CMU foundation and a different type of wood building for that part of the barn. And I'm working with a couple people who are my thinking partners on this, but we'd like to see it turned into a creator space made for thinking about exactly what you said, Sean, like taking what's available in the proximity and repurposing it or rethinking how we can use it as a building material. I was told by my husband I should stop saying so I'll stop.
It's okay.
Not true. I did not say that.
But seriously, just keep. Just like tell the story. It's a great story.
Yeah. Keep going.
So yeah, that's what we're doing. MIT has such fabrication labs, and I've been connected with someone at MIT who's looking at this. There's a school in Spain, I'm going to say it wrong, Valladora or something like that, but they're interested in partnering, and they combine self-sufficient, no grid connection whatsoever with processing of materials, so that architects and engineers can work together on developing the future, basically regenerative systems to help us all out. So that's the premise. And what am I missing? Yeah, we're looking at closing in the next couple of days, and then we're going to put a new roof on the thing so it stops leaking, and then we're going to start partnering and putting stuff in there and making accessible to the community and whoever else wants to visit. So you're all welcome. Come on by. It's in Parksville, New York, which is in Sullivan County in the Catskills. And there's a lot of cool development happening kind of in and around that area of the Catskills. One of our friends who did the groundbreaking for 669 actually from NYSERDA, he came, and we'd never met him before, but we got to talking, and he's got a net zero and carbon neutral development happening just the town over. So we're piggybacking off each other's energy, and super cool.
No, it's really cool. And again, I won't hog this because this is stuff that I love, but these kind of co-op opportunities where some of the smaller builders who want to get into prefab but don't have the space, that maybe can rent it from you and have a bit of some of the tables, some of the saws are kind of all there ready to go, and they just rent it for the projects you have. And then as they grow, then they can go onto their own barns. But you could be a bit of a test co-op as these things grow. So very cool.
And we're hoping that it could also be an educational opportunity for those who are willing to, take on apprentices. There's, a refund or something in the program so that your cost is actually lower, and the rent. It's really a crazy project because the cost of restoring the building is the only cost that we have basically at this point. Which isn't nothing, but it's not acquisition and design and development. It's just we know how to do it and we got to do it. So it's an interesting project.
I definitely see maybe a library of mock-ups being going on there, or so that people have the resource. Maybe Kevin Brennan can start up his passive training course there, a retreat. Is there camping space or?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. And you can be there for 6 months before the HOA gets mad. So welcome, everyone.
Maybe future passive house retreat one weekend.
Yeah, there's an aspect of it. There'll be a part of it that's community kitchen or commercial kitchen, and how that becomes community is up in the air. But and 2 separate rental buildings will be part of it, and we have a tenancy that we can use the other 8 acres at 6 months interval. So we can do, micro houses or whatever else on the rest of it. But I think the barn really is the cool part.
No, really cool. And Mr. P.H. Belnair had a question, so I'll let you come on, Peter.
Yeah, Caitlin, just wondering if you're, depending on what kind of a budget you have for redoing the barn, the Barnwood Builders on HGTV, Mark Bowe.
Never even heard of them.
DIY Network or the HGTV program called Barnwood Builders.
Okay.
And they, well, refurbish or they deconstruct and set up a barn somewhere else. But they are very knowledgeable about, like, your, what's a 150-year-old barn?
Yeah, 100 and something.
Yeah,
somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they do. Pioneer barns, and they'll salvage boards. They'll take it down. They'll put up somewhere else. But also, they know enough about restoration.
That's awesome. Well, I'm happy to meet them. You said they're in Virginia, which is a bit of a trek, but I'm happy to talk to anyone about this at this point.
Yeah, they travel. They have an extension in Texas, but they take down barns in Ohio and Pennsylvania and the South. So they do travel. They're used to that. But I don't know what it would be, what you'd want to do, what he can do, but the history wise too. There's the last episode they showed was he learned a lot from a septuagenarian restorer of barns. And yeah, so just to.
That's fascinating. Yeah, no. Peter, I'd be happy, and you're connected with them directly. I'd be happy to.
No. I live in Toronto. I'm up in Canada.
Sorry.
I'm just an observer, a fan of the show Barnwood Builders.
All right.
I like what they do, but there are other. Yeah.
Well,
see.
I've been really lucky because there's a hospitality group in this particular area of the Catskills, and I guess I can give them a plug. It's Foster Supply Hospitality, but they do a really amazing job of finding old buildings that are nothing, and then they really restore them and give them, bring back the character that they had, and then find a marketable hospitality model within the character that they've re-uncovered, basically. And so they were someone I reached out to early on because they know old buildings, and their contractor is one who's been helping me through this process. So I feel really lucky. He sees potential in the barn and is excited because it's probably $1 billion for him to do the work. So anyway.
Have you looked at, well, structurally, how is it sound? Has it been well protected or breathable? I mean, mostly
super
in the areas of
breathable.
rot. Yeah, that's where they were built. That's why they.
Yeah, I had a kind of like coming to the spirits moment where I was like, I want to make this a passive house, but it's already operating perfectly passively currently. So what am I doing to this building? And so we're reconsidering, like, okay, we're not going to put insulation in the roof because it's got the original slat boards and it breathes really well, and you open a window in spring and there's no damage. So it's a weird, it's totally a mind, like I'd say the F word, but a mind, conundrum to figure out what you actually do with an old barn if you want to make it energy efficient for a future use.
And Caitlin, you can say fuck on the happy hour because it's with PH, so it's not a swear word.
Oh yeah.
Right, we get away with it.
There's a mind fuck. Let's put that on the next Instagram post.
Yep, it's acceptable. And I think Norm's left, but he did a really cool farm. I'll have to ask him next time. I'm trying to think of the.
Daniel, you're still here. Yes, you can always park your Airstream. Yay!
It's down to it, Daniel. Yeah, sorry, I apologize. Norm from Infinity Builders, he worked on a really cool farm project, and it was a farm to table cafe business, and I'm totally not doing it properly. And I know Norm's going to punch me the next time he sees me, but really a really cool project. So I would say I'll figure out how to connect you guys, because
Yeah, that would be great.
he did make that a passive house.
Interesting. Yeah, I got reamed out when I brought it up to a local builder. He's like, "What do you want to do? You're gonna put what on a barn?"
Well, if it's a local builder that does no passive house, save your breath and move on.
I know,
'Cause
yeah.
Unless you're ready to educate.
And that's the other thing, is I really think that this project will, in partnership with Cooper, and I'm talking with Nina from Syracuse University, who has her own living lab project. The idea is that by making this barn or bringing it to its next role in its world, you know, that's the educational opportunity that we're hoping to take advantage of. So students of any age are welcome, and we're going to try to figure out a way to make that, you know, accessible to anyone.
Very cool. Well, again, the community is all here to help you out, and so let us know if you need assistance, because I mean, there's a really good New York contingent, and again, so I'm sorry, I'm just trying to brainstorm people. I'm like, who can I name drop right now for you?
I just like Mark's thumbs up every so now and then, like makes it just okay.
Yeah. So just so you know, though, if he gives 2 thumbs up, it means you kind of need to move along. So if you're getting the 1, he likes you. If you get the double, that's the code with Mark.
Go.
The inside scoop with Mark. Yeah. Okay. We're moving on. Okay, so we still have a bunch of time. Again, thanks for a little bit of the segue, but sometimes this is what's nice about the happy hour, is we don't have to just dive into the current project. We can talk about the other cool things you guys are up to, and this is your opportunity to kind of have it. And I mean, like, this is the way that you guys have taken this project from concept. And I mean, it is nice to have a client that has bought into it and have the non-negotiables. Like, I mean, that's like, I think that's one thing we would all love. And I think maybe we all need to kind of figure out how to sit down with your client and be like, so if you're hiring me, this is our non-negotiables. So hopefully they're yours, because, you know, a lot of time it's people that want to have a building, and then you're like, by the way, if you want a building, we don't do code, we do passive house. And so this is what we do. We build beyond code. And
you said all the trigger words, and I'm sure Tony will now say what he wants to say.
You know, we had to really dance around that for a long time, because, you know, every time you say, oh yes, we want to do, you know, green building or sustainable building or energy efficient building, or, you know, or lately passive house, everybody, you know, just like says, oh, well, wait, you know, let me get the calculator out and, you know, start, you know, like, oh, is it paying for itself? You know, oh, you know, it's just like, look,
Tony, I'm clipping that, what you just did, and then we're gonna send that out to every time we have these passive discussions. It's gonna be, don't be a Tony. Don't do this. Just have the conversation. You're already bought into it. Don't mess around with it.
No, but seriously,
Can we get a GIF of that?
Every time, you know, we spent a lot of effort trying to figure out how not to have those stupid conversations, which are, you know, like framed by the oil companies in the 70s to put the kibosh on solar. I mean, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's like, yeah, man, we're gonna measure your worth by the length of your index finger. I mean, it's just, you know, it's ridiculous.
Finger
I mean,
is PHINGER. Finger.
Yeah,
finger,
totally.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, conversations about payback and does it pay for itself, they are counterproductive. If you enter that conversation, you've lost the argument.
So what have we done, Tony?
So we've always said that we're a best practices company. And that you're going to get, when we design the project, you're going to get our details. And we've had some developers fight us and some clients fight us on it. And, you know, and then for a long time, we were doing a lot, you know, like a lot of really little projects where there just really wasn't that much room. I mean, just, you know, honestly, but, you know, when we got to do a whole building or a building that had an exterior, we detailed it the way we saw fit, you know, which is pretty good. Maybe not passive house, but, you know, for the past 10 years, you know, we've practiced at it and tried to do well. And, you know, there's a surprising amount of authority that you can claim as an architect. You know, if you're willing, I don't know, maybe I just have the right kind of personality for this, but, you know, if you're willing to, you know, to face down a, you know, a contractor or developer who says something is you know, it's, you know, you'd save money by doing it some other way. You know, you can say, no, I'm sorry, I'm the architect, I'm the expert, and you know, you'll do it this way. And, you know, you leverage your knowledge of, you know, building codes, arcane building department procedures and protocols to, you know, to have your way. And I don't know. I mean, is that a good business model? Well, we've stayed in business and we've managed to improve our client base. So I'd say on balance, yes. And, you know, I mean, I get to spend time thinking about the essence of a project and not, you know, convincing some, you know, like pointy-headed, you know, Mr. Know-it-all, and you know who I'm talking about. You know, that, you know, that, yeah, it really, you know, you're gonna save lots of money. It's gonna be good for your bank. It's, you know, yeah, it's sure, you know, do it this way. It's like, I don't know. We just avoid these conversations at all costs.
Tony, I feel like you have gotten on board of the unofficial Passive House Fight Club where you don't talk about Passive House. Where you literally just talk about the Passive House experience and how great it is without having to really put in the, you know, the 5 points. You just slide it right in there.
Maybe that's it. I don't know. It's
the Fight Club.
It takes a suave kind of a person to you know, to make these kinds of arguments.
Yeah.
Are you really thinking the 2 to 10% premium that seems to be the number can't get offset by the electricity? Because everything I've seen is if you amortize the extra cost with today's interest rates, you're saving money literally month one by not paying electric bills. So you can be talking to the pointy-headed accountant and still win the argument right off the bat.
What's going to win the argument for us is that we're doing a market rate project at no premium, and that's going to win awards and you know, be a certified passive house. And once that's done, we won't even have to have the argument.
Yeah. Yeah, and Caitlin, you bring your point too about the premium. Like, I mean, the way that you guys came up with the design and you know, when you really look at it from a holistic approach where the passive house is just part of it, all the, you know, the body carbon is a part of, electrification is a part of it. You know, there's so much going on that it's like, no, that we're just building a good building.
Mark.
And he like zoomed in on it too. It was like the big thumbs up from Mark. And it's funny, I caught off guard. I was looking at Peter's thumbs up, and then I see Mark's like, Mark's whole screen is his thumb. Oh, great stuff, you guys. Honestly, anyone else want to chime in here? I kind of hogged the questions the last 10 minutes here. This is just fantastic stuff. And again, I can't wait to see the, you know, more of it come up. So, I mean, I'm sure we'll have you back in whenever you guys get a chance to finish it, wrap it up, and put a plaque on it. So.
Yeah, and I think we'll be having, you know, contractor tours eventually once we get closer to that part. And we're hoping to do kind of a live buildable library, and hopefully we'll be able to do some Construction Tuesday
Yes, you will.
information, you know, through this process. And also, just one more time, tomorrow is the NAPHN Conference, so please feel free to join or stop by.
No, great stuff. We got 10 minutes left. So again, we'll give you guys praise. I know you've been at it for a while here, so thanks for staying late. Anyone else have any other Passive House news to share? Any other success stories or challenges or anything else you wanted to chime in before I kick you all out and head off to softball, to my kids' softball tonight? Anybody? Oh, come on. Well, I know Ian and the rest of us are, actually I had to turn it off, Ian, but yeah, the city council thing is still going on and they're on a dinner break now, which, so, you know, the council's actually done about 5 minutes of work and the rest have been policy BS stuff. So thanks, Ian, for giving me the updates while this has been going on.
Hey, Sean, I bid on a 2,500 square foot passive house with a 700 square foot DADU in Seattle, Washington today.
So you did?
I bid on it for studs, not to purchase.
Oh, gotcha.
So,
Excellent. And it's funny you say that because Bob Edmonds was on in my breakout room and he was talking. So I wonder if that's who you're talking to, because he's building, he joined us tonight because he's building a 2-unit passive house with an ADU in Seattle too. So might have been the same person. If not, more passive house, the merrier.
I cannot confirm with a PH or deny. I cannot confirm or deny.
Got it. Okay. Maybe I shouldn't have made that connection, but anyhow, great. Excellent. You know what? It's funny. I made a note on Monday that there was some passive house news for me to share, and I'm just drawing a blank, but I guess it's been a long day. So, Brett, what's going on up in the north? How's the giant mosquitoes?
Mate, sucker.
Yeah. So is that the biggest change for you from going from down under to up north?
Yeah, it actually hasn't been that bad. So it's I guess the only thing that I'm sort of climatizing to is that the sun doesn't go down until about 11 o'clock here at night, and it's up at around 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's yeah, it's a lot of dark curtains across the place. So it's that's probably the only thing really. So it's not bad.
Right, it's just saying you just need to work 24/7. Like, why do you have to go to sleep? The lights are still,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly
be like a
right.
Vegas club, put some oxygen filter into your thing and keep cracking.
There we go. Yeah, just crack onto the scuba tanks and keep breathing.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Again, thanks, Caitlin, for putting in your email. I'm gonna for those two save the chat. If you're not sure how to do that, there are 3 little dots beside the chat, just beside file. You should be able to click on that, and then once we leave, you should be able to get the chat with all the fun links and Caitlin's email if you want to follow up with her. Other than that, you two, Tony and Caitlin, I think we'll call it a night. Thanks again for sharing the story.
Yeah.
We'll be following along.
Thank you guys, and thanks everyone. This is great.
Yes,
Well,
thanks for the platform. We appreciate it.
Well, thanks for inspiring us. Enjoy the conference the next 2 days, everyone. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow at the conference, virtually for me, in person for some of you. Sydney and I look forward to bringing you the happy hour. Luckily, I was able to get our good friend Adam White's Passive House bar photos. So technically, I'll be in Vancouver, but virtually in just outside of Cambridge at a Passive House bar that had an air change of 0.07. It's pretty impressive little facility that they created. So other than that, folks, I guess we'll say goodnight.